Let's bring in Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com. What would you have ruled on this, Mike, if you were the arbitrator?
Well, I mean, I was inclined all along to think that Jimmy Graham is a receiver for franchise tag purposes, and franchise tag purposes only because the labor deal says if you get the franchise tag, you get paid at the position where you participated in the most plays the prior year. And once that tight end moves away from tight to the end of the line, he becomes a receiver when he's playing in the slot. And that was what I was inclined to think was going to happen. And what the arbitrator basically did, you know how the soccer referee has that silly string that they spray on the ground? He basically sprayed a 4-yard line to the left or right of the tackle, and if you're inside that 4 yards, you're a tight end. If you're outside that 4 yards, you're a receiver. And I don't know that I agree with it. And here's the thing to keep in mind. This is all subject to appeal. There's a 3-person panel that may decide that the arbitrator got it wrong. That's not done yet. It may not be done for several weeks.
But isn't it time the NFL revisited designations here? Given the amount of money that was left on the table here, $5 million difference there with Jimmy Graham, is Jimmy Graham, in the definition of tight ends, what used to be tight ends, is he a tight end?
No, he's not, and you hit the nail right on the head. It's long overdue for the NFL and the NFL Players Association to get together and address this gaping. It's not a loophole; it's a canyon between wide receiver and tight end because so many players play in the slot, and it's not just Jimmy Graham, tight end. It's Wes Welker, wide receiver, Anquan Bolden, wide receiver. There's a category of guys who line up exclusively, if not most of the time, in the slot. And that's a different cat altogether, regardless of whether he's 6'7" or 5'10". He's doing different things than a wide receiver or a tight end. And at some point, the system needs to address that.
I guess the bigger story that I don't know if people are looking at this is Jimmy Graham, are they going to get this done by July 15th? Is Jimmy Graham going to be disgruntled going to camp?
Well, the Saints are confident they're going to get a deal done by July 15th. That's how they did it with Drew Brees. Drew Brees had a grievance a couple of years ago, and he won. And he put the screws to the Saints, and the Saints worked out a deal by July 15th. They like to wait until the last minute. That's the way they do business. That's fine. But now they have to ask themselves, is Jimmy Graham going to be willing to go forward? Is Jimmy Graham going to want to do a long-term deal? How much money are they going to have to put on the table to get him to take it, as opposed to saying, you know what, I'll see you the Friday before the first game of the regular season? Because a franchise player can show up that late, sign the tender, get the full $7 million, in Graham's case as a tight end, and miss all of training camp, all of preseason with no financial consequence. And guys have done that in the past. Graham could do that if he doesn't get the kind of long-term deal he wants. But the Saints are confident they're going to get something worked out by July 15. That's the date. After that, it can only be a one-year deal between the Saints and Jimmy Graham.
He's Mike Florio from ProFootballTalk.com. You can catch Pro Football Talk on NBCSN every weekday at 5:30 Eastern. The Cleveland Browns versus Johnny Manziel. Where's this going? Where's this headed?
Well, you know, it's intriguing because – and let's think about this. Last Friday, Chris Mortensen reports that owner Jimmy Haslam wants Johnny Manziel to tone it down. Now, if we had, in the wake of that, come up with a multiple choice of all the things that Jimmy Graham could do to defy – or not Jimmy Graham, Johnny Manziel. Yeah. Jimmy, Johnny, same difference. That Johnny Manziel could do to defy Jimmy Haslam. The crazy, goofy multiple choice option that no one would believe would be go hang out with Justin Bieber, wouldn't it? I mean, we'd have been, I'd say, oh, yeah, right, yeah, that's an option. And that's what Manziel does. And how can that not be viewed as an act of defiance of the guy who is writing his checks? And what do the Browns do about it? Do they do nothing and just continue to assess the guy based on how he plays? And you made the point when I was on with you a couple of weeks ago that if Manziel fails in any way, shape, or form, it's all going to be attributed to his lifestyle. No matter what the real reason is, it's going to be attributed to his lifestyle. He is going all in on his ability to play well, and whether he realizes it or not, if he doesn't, it's all going to be tied to hanging out with Bieber and floating on the inflatable swan and doing all the other things that he has done and all the stuff that he presumably will do going forward.
Is Manziel doing what everybody else would do if they were in that situation?
No. I mean, plenty of guys have been in that situation. And it's okay to go have a good time, but you don't attach a GoPro camera to your wrist everywhere you go and mug for the selfies and then act like you're offended.
Oh, I know
people
that.
Are paying attention.
Yes.
It's like you walk out of your house wearing some ridiculous Lady Gaga costume, and you say, "Why is everybody looking at me? Mind your own business." You can't have it both ways, and that's the game that he's playing, and it's rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. And I wonder how the locker room is really going to receive this, the Bieber stuff, all the other stuff. Is he going to be able to win over the veterans? Because if he can't win over the veterans, it's going to be hard to be an effective starting quarterback.
I saw where soccer could be on par with the NFL in 20 years. What do you think of that?
Well, I hope to be alive in 20 years. I hope to be in position to assess whether or not it's there. But I still they've got to change the game in ways that fit.
I'm joking. I'm joking. With you. I knew I
could. You really
could.
think it could be?
No.
You concerned me.
I know. We thought Paulie goes, "Oh, you want to rile up Florio?
Yeah.
Just say that. He'll freak out."
Well, it's increasing in audience. I don't know that it affects the NFL, but think about the elite athletes we have that play football and basketball and baseball. If the best of the best played soccer instead, it would be like some crazy, freakish team that would just dominate, wouldn't it?
Give me your NFL soccer team.
Adrian Peterson, LaShawn McCoy, Mike Vick, J.J. Watt playing keeper, Jimmy Graham at some hybrid position that no one would be able to agree what it is. I mean, just think about it. I mean, obviously you have to play soccer your whole life, and maybe guys who are great with their hands wouldn't necessarily be great with their feet, but you take those elite, the best of the best, and you groom them their entire lives playing soccer, you're going to have a pretty special team. And it would, at some point, affect the top-level talent in the NFL.
But see, I have to put Manziel out there because I got to get clicks here for my team.
Well, yeah, we need Manziel somewhere, somehow. We need Manziel.
Then I get celebrities who come there and part of the ownership there. I mean, think big picture, Mike.
What happens if Bieber shows up for a Browns game this year in Cleveland?
Oh, Bieber, Bieber fever. I don't know,
Did
but
you see Bieber in the dog pound?
I hope he's in the dog house.
Dog food.
I wouldn't rule it out. You have Drake, who's probably going to show up. Drake just shows up at all these sporting events now, right?
Yeah, but no one's ever showed up for a Browns event other than Browns fans. And other than Drew Carey, is there any high-profile Browns fan out there?
But don't you think that could change, and that's part of bringing in Manziel?
Oh, absolutely, if you can control the guy. That's the problem. You want to be relevant. You just don't want to be relevant in the way that Johnny Manziel's making you relevant.
If you were Johnny Manziel's agent, what would you be telling him now?
I'd be telling him, remember all that stuff we were doing before the draft when we refused to do any interviews, we refused to leave the house, we were creating the impression that we're all about football. Can we do that again? Can we just, at least, once in a while? Because it just really creates the impression that was all a ruse. And it was a ruse. It was a ruse to get drafted as high as possible, and now Johnny's being himself. And for better or worse, that's who he is, and we'll see if he can play football.
If the Browns knew this now, knew back then what they know now,
I think they would have taken Bridgewater. They would have stayed at 26 and taken Bridgewater.
But Teddy didn't want to go there.
Well, it's easy to say that now, but
he said it back then.
That's the thing about the draft. The draft means you go places you don't want to go, and guys have a way of making the best of their situation. I mean, they'd had his rights for 5 years, and you can either be happy about being in Cleveland or not play football. Go play soccer.
Have a great weekend,
All right,
Mike.
see you, buddy.
That's Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com.